Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Love Your Dogs podcast. My name is Bree Drake. I am a holistic dog health educator. Well, I've actually changed it to a nature aligned dog health educator. That felt more fitting to me. You may have noticed that on Instagram. So, nature aligned dog health educator and a certified holistic pet health coach. Today, we're going to talk all things nutrition with someone who really knows what they're talking about. I am talking with Kay Stewart of the Feed Real Institute. Kay is actually a registered veterinary technician, and she's a certified professional canine nutritionist. She has over 40 years in the veterinary field. So she's actually, before the Feed Real Institute, spent decades in academia and research settings, including animal research, oversight, faculty advising. So she's just a wealth of knowledge. And I actually, I'm always sending people that I work with one-on-one, people on Instagram. I'm sending so many people to the Feed Real Institute to take either their 2-hour online live workshop, which is incredible, or doing one of their full canine nutrition courses. It's a mirror. I mean, they are just doing the Lord's work. When I first started raw feeding, I would have given anything to know that they existed, because they make it so easy. Everything that they do is science backed, clear, no misinformation, just so many great tools and like assets to help you get more confident in feeding your dog real food and preparing it yourself, choosing commercially prepared raw, choosing commercially prepared, gently cooked, doing gently cooked at home. I mean, they'll help you with all of it and make sure that you're doing it in the right way so that there's no guesswork, there's no stress, there's no fear. I just love everything that they're doing. And you hear me say that 100 times throughout this episode, but I'm so grateful that she spent a good hour and a half of her time with me, helping to educate all of you. And remember that nutrition is so important. And at Feed Real Institute, and even myself, we do like to meet people where they are. But just know that you'll be doing your dog such a good service by switching them to fresh food. If you just give it a try for 30 days and put that fear aside, get a hold of yourself when it comes to the expense and the time, and just know that our animals are not designed to eat an ultra processed kibble every single day of their lives for their entire lives. It just doesn't end well and doesn't give them the quality of life that they deserve. And I know it's tricky, I know it's intimidating, but feedreal.com exists. So I will share everything at the end of this episode as well, and in the podcast notes as always. But just know that they exist, and know that they have lots of articles. They have a Feed Real calculator. They have the courses in the workshop themselves. If you subscribe to their email, Kay has Tuesday tidbits that she sends out on a weekly basis. I mean, there's so many great tools that there's really no excuses. There's no excuses to not learn how to do better no matter where you're at, because incorporating some fresh is doable. I talk about this in the episode, but I started out by mixing kibble with some gently cooked eggs and turkey and cod, and just making that change. And you heard me talk about it in an earlier episode where I kind of walk through my whole journey, but just making that change alone, just half the kibble to gently cooked. I mean, my dogs were new dogs, especially Anne, who was 11 years old. I mean, everything improved: mobility, skin, coat, everything improved seemingly overnight. It was probably a week or two, but it made me a believer forever. And I've never looked back. Nature knows best always. And I know it's hard to get our heads around, because there has been a lot of money, a lot of really powerful marketing and advertising that have convinced us that kibble is the answer, the safest way to feed your dog, and that it is safe and that it is beneficial. But it's not. And I'm never going to sugarcoat that. We want our dogs eating as fresh as possible. I'm going to stop blabbing per usual and enjoy our conversation.
Hello.
Hi there.
How are you?
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Busy morning, but got it all under
Oh,
control.
you're so busy. Yeah.
I had a
What do you have going on today?
I had little kids here overnight. My daughter is she helps with home births. And so when she's
Okay.
got a client that's ready to give birth, we just all have to be on standby. And so last night she showed up with the
Oh,
kids. And
oh my
so
gosh.
kind of an impromptu sleepover, but their dad lives across the street and up 2 houses from me, so he took over
Okay.
this morning, and he actually took one of them. He took the boy, he's 6, I took the girl that's 8, and so they each had a
Yeah.
private sleepover, and so it was fun. But, yeah, just was like, "Okay, I wasn't expecting that, but that's okay." That's how it is.
Oh, well, I'm glad you could still make it. I
Oh, no
appreciate your
problem.
time so much. As you know, I love everything about the Feed Real Institute.
Nice.
You make my job so easy because anytime there's nutritional needs, I'm like, go to the Feed Real Institute and take the course, at
Nice.
least do the 2-hour workshop. I mean,
Yeah,
I stand wholeheartedly behind everything you guys are doing because
thank you.
I think that's there's a lot of struggles with the
It's a
health of our
lot of
dogs,
struggles,
but
yeah.
if
Well, and
people
it's
can get over the nutritional hurdle, it's like
yeah, and it's
it's
just
kind
so
of
hard
a
because
gateway and sets you free, yeah.
the veterinary world isn't caught up yet, and, they're getting there. We're getting more and more veterinary professionals involved, and that's what it's gonna
Yeah,
take because people still have that whole
yeah,
white collar, like, or white coat thing that, "Oh, the doctor says, and I believe my doctor," and so it's a stumbling block, but we'll get
I
there,
know,
you know?
it's so hard.
One
I
family
struggle
at
with
a
that
time,
all the
one dog at a
time.
time. I know, me too.
Yeah, and I know you have a long veterinary background too.
Yeah. Yeah, I
You're
had
a
to
vet
do
tech.
yeah, I'm a vet tech. I graduated in '82 back, at Purdue
Yeah,
University, and I was conventionally trained, and that's how I was taught, and so everything had to be, a 180 for me. But
yeah,
as soon as the light bulb went on, I was like, "Duh." You know? It's like, "Why did it take me this long?" But, yeah.
yeah, what was your light bulb?
Working for Phaedriel. So I was
Oh,
actually in, biomedical research for the majority of my career at the University of Notre Dame.
yeah,
And when that job ended, I was kind of at an impasse. I didn't know what I was gonna do, and I found this writing gig for Feed Real, which is research and writing was a lot of what I did in my other job.
yeah.
And so, yeah, as I'm researching, I'm like, "Why did it take me so long?" I didn't have a dog at the time. I went for almost 6 years without having a dog. And so, um but I transitioned my daughter's dog, I transitioned my daughter's cats, and then I finally got mine when I got my own house. I made a lot of huge life changes all at once, including the job and
Yeah.
everything, so I just put my world on topsy-turvy spin and started over, so, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy for me. For me, I never really I kinda questioned what I was feeding my dogs. I fed them Royal Canine, Golden Retriever formula for their entire lives, and I never really questioned it.
Yeah,
Sometimes I would think, "Oh, it's nice that some people cook for their dogs," and, that would kinda cross my mind from time to time, and then as soon as one veterinarian who specialized in traditional Chinese veterinary medicine,
uh-huh,
as soon as that vet who was helping to treat my female Golden's arthritis with acupuncture, as soon as she said, "Hey, let's try making switching half of their kibble to gently cooked. Do
mhm,
some cooked ground turkey, some eggs, just start there." And I was like, "Sure, I'm on board. I'm gonna do it." Never questioned it. And as soon as I did that, immediate changes started happening. I mean, that 11-year-old dog became a puppy again. Her
oh,
coat was
I
the
love
best it
that.
ever looked. Her skin was great. So I was sold from then on out. It was a no-brainer to me, and I immediately started reading more and learned that raw was the best. So I
Mhm,
slowly transitioned them to completely to raw, although the expense side of things really had me stressed out for a while.
yeah.
I was making spreadsheets and trying to justify it and make it work. And at the end of the day, I'm like, this is for their health, this is I just have to swallow this pill that it's gonna be a little bit more money than feeding kibble up front.
Right,
But, having made those changes, my dogs still ended up with cancer, both of them, because I've been feeding them horribly and doing a lot of other terrible things their whole life. So as soon as, I got this huge wake up call that I spent tens of thousands of dollars on their cancer journeys where I'm like, I could have been feeding them fresh all along and saved a
Yeah.
ton of money and a lot of heartbreak. So,
But you don't know. They
what
still
do you
could
think?
have, gotten the cancer, but that's one of the things I really stress to people. You can't beat yourself up
Yeah,
over the dogs in the past, and you just have to do going forward, because it is. I mean, I think the
exactly.
same thing. "Oh, if I'd have known this when I had that dog," and, um, but, you know it when you do, and then you go forward, so.
Yeah. So, what did your veterinary nutrition education look like, if you can remember?
Oh, back at Purdue, it was minimal, and
Yeah.
then we had, like, Purina they were a Purina school, so Purina came in with,
Yeah.
some booklets, you could, do a little quiz and get a little certificate, um, they gave us benefits on, a percentage off of food, they gave us all kinds of free treats and stuff for our dogs, and that was it, and I only worked in practice for 2 years, it
Mhm.
was a rural practice, and yeah, very few people even brought their dogs in for, like, skin issues and stuff. I mean, it was yeah, I got bored very quickly, which is why I went into veterinary or into, biomedical research. And then, I remember taking a couple of Hills courses. I mentored students at Notre Dame that wanted to go on to vet school, so I helped them get their requirement. Some of them had to have a nutrition course so I could, proctor exams and stuff for them for, distance learning courses, and it was all the same stuff, and it's just and those schools that required that's all the nutrition they
Mhm.
got was in undergrad, and so, yeah, it's incredible. Um, we had a veterinarian on my office calls the other day, office hours, and she's taken the course, and she's an older veterinarian, she's probably close to my age, and she's looking to retire and then do something worthwhile, and she's like, "I just wish I would have known all this before, and
Oh,
I'm so burnt out on all this stuff that I'm constantly treating, and now I see that I can treat it this way," and so she's really excited to have a new path to go to, um, yeah, and so it and she even said, she goes, "We didn't get any nutrition other than Hills coming in." So, it's really sad.
yeah. Yeah, and now it's almost like there's this whole agenda in the veterinary schools today against raw
Oh, yeah.
feeding, and it's
Yeah.
so dangerous and so
Yes.
unhealthy, and they really are going out of their way. What are your thoughts on that? What are you seeing?
Well, they're being pressured by the kibble companies that are sponsoring the vet schools. I think every vet school has
Yeah,
one of the major kibble companies sponsoring them. And
yeah.
so, Dr. Connor Brady's story with working with the guide dogs down in Australia, and he had them all switched over to raw, 85% reduction in their veterinary bills. The animals were doing great. After he left, they went back to kibble because the kibble companies were like, "We're dropping your funding if you don't feed them kibble." And so, this is a nonprofit. And
Yeah.
so, yeah. So, when you've got that kind of financial pressure, veterinary schools are so expensive to run. And
Mhm.
so, if they've got a big sponsor, it's really hard. So, yeah, money, it's the whole follow the money. And that's so frustrating.
Yeah, it really is, and it makes the work that you and I do so much more difficult because we don't have the money to have these big formal studies done,
Yeah.
and that's what people tend to gravitate towards when they need comfort in believing something to be true, and
Hmm.
it's odd to me how difficult it is for some people to just understand that stick to that natural framework for dogs, and you're probably not gonna need the vet, very rarely. I
Yeah.
encourage, routine testing to some
Sure.
degree, but when you feed your dog right, I mean, my guy, knock on wood, he's been raw fed since weaned off of mom's milk, and we've gone to the vet one time for a titer test last year. That was it.
Yeah.
I mean, he is so even, like, stools have always been great. I remember my last 2 guys, they had it's common for puppies to have diarrhea, especially after those first rounds of
Yeah.
vaccines, and that's kinda what
I
starts the
know.
cycle is that first round of puppy diarrhea, you panic and bring them to the vet because you probably are worried it's parvo,
Yeah.
and then they throw them on a
I know.
crappy probiotic and some antibiotics and send you on your way, and then you're stuck in that cycle.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's something I really struggle with. It's so simple for me. It clicked with
Yes.
me, but for many others, they need to see studies, and to have these studies, there has to be so much money.
Yeah.
There's people with much more money than us trying to prove us wrong all the
Well,
time.
and the thing that I like to throw back is like, I really want to see a study that shows that kibble is better than raw? Can kibble produce that
Yeah,
study?
where's that?
Where is that?
Yeah.
And, for
Mhm.
them to say, well, there's no studies that raw is good. Why do we need studies about nature and about natural?
I
Like
know.
it's counterintuitive to say that we need to prove that whole
Yeah.
foods are good for you. So,
Yes, exactly. Oh,
and then that's
yeah.
what when I talk to veterinary professionals, I say, every other profession, medical profession is saying stay away from ultra processed food. And yet, as veterinarians and veterinary technicians, they're saying feed this ultra processed food every day for your dog's life. And don't add anything because it's going to unbalance it. It's like,
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah,
counterintuitive.
I
So,
know. I mean, I was this way, and I'm sure most dog parents are this way too, where I thought I was the greatest dog parent in the world because I just fed that same kibble. I literally never changed the formula, and I never gave them table scraps, never gave
mhm.
them anything fresh. And that is probably the worst thing I could have done.
Yeah.
Like, they
I
were
know, and
getting
to
no
think
real
about it.
hydration, no real
Yeah.
nutrition. And so many, I just don't understand why that's drilled into our heads to not change the food
I know.
and then not give any fresh food of any sort. How did we
How did we
thinking
get there?
back on it now, I'm like, where how
I
did I
know.
ever convince myself that that was okay
I
and
get it.
made any sense? And then, I shared about this recently, how we have our carnivores, our predators in the zoos, the lions, the tigers, the
Mhm.
wolves, and we're okay with watching them get fed by the zookeepers, these slabs of raw
Yeah,
meat or whole prey. But when we think about our own facultative carnivores that live in our own homes, we're saying, well, they're domesticated, so they can't eat that. Domestication doesn't mean their biology changed and
right.
their anatomy changed. It means we're just deciding that feeding them raw meat in our homes is inappropriate and inconvenient or
Yeah,
too expensive or too gross. And that's a lot of the underlying issue with why our dogs are so unhealthy too, just domestication in general and not
right.
letting them live like animals. But so talk to me a little bit about our dog's anatomy because that's the
Yeah.
main proof that we have is
And that's where
that
I start
their
my
anatomy is built for meat.
workshops.
Yeah.
Yes, the anatomy and physiology is a great place to start, and it is a place that we start when
Yeah.
we do the entire course. Um, And that is a way to look at whether an animal is an omnivore or a carnivore or herbivore. And if you look at the dog's mouth, we'll start there. They have 4 types of teeth. They have incisors, canines, premolars, and molars. All of them are sharp and pointy. And that means that they're used for tearing, ripping, chewing, swallowing. They're not grinding. Their mouth only opens up and down. It doesn't go side to side. And so they can't grind. They can't grind the food. They can chew it a little bit, but they can't grind it like you would need for grasses and grains and that kind of thing. So that's a first clue. And then another thing in their mouth is they have no amylase. They have no salivary amylase. Amylase breaks down carbohydrates. So if you or I put a cracker in our mouth, it would slowly dissolve because of the amylase in our saliva. Dogs, if they would leave it in their mouth, that wouldn't happen. And so amylase never hits their system until all that whole bolus of food has gone through the stomach and into the small intestine. So it never gets any amylase until that small intestine bolus. That amylase is coming from the pancreas. The pancreas has to work overtime to produce enough amylase to digest all of that kibble. Kibble can be anywhere from, 30 to 60% carbohydrates. And so to be able to process all that, the body has to work so hard to produce that amylase. About 40 to 60% of kibble is not even digested. It goes out the back end undigested, which is why they have those huge stools that are very stinky. It's just not digesting the food. The body can't keep up with it. Part of that is because they have a very short digestive tract compared to other animals. Cats have even a shorter one. They don't have the ability to ferment and digest all of these starchy carbs.
Mm.
Their stomach acid is comparable to battery acid. It's extremely low pH when you're feeding them raw, especially, which is why they can process those bones. They can process that bacteria. It's not an
Mhm.
issue for them. So that's another aspect of showing that dogs are truly facultative carnivores that need the meat and fat and organs in their diet, not these starchy carbs. A wild canid, their meal is about 49% protein, 45% fat, and maybe about 6% carbs. Those carbs, they could be
Mhm.
berries if they choose to, or a little bit of grass, but mainly it's carbs from the prey that they're eating. There might be a little bit of carbohydrates being fermented in their intestines or their stomach. They don't, in a large prey, they're
Yes.
not going to eat
Yeah, and
all
it's
of that.
fermented,
Yes,
pre-digested, yeah.
exactly. And so
Yep.
that's the carbs they're getting. They're not going out and eating corn, and they're not eating wheat and soy and all that stuff that's in kibble. So,
Yeah, it breaks my heart what we've been convinced to believe our dogs can eat, and the disconnect is that dogs, gosh, generally are so resilient that they can live these long lives, basically being tortured by these foods.
yes.
So anyone who says, "Well, my dog ate kibble and lived to 17," I'm like, "Well, think about how much longer, what better quality of life your dog might have had if
Mhm.
you were feeding that poor dog fresh food." So that makes this a hard sell too, is so many people think their dog is fine
Right.
because so many of the things that show us they're not fine have been normalized. Like, this is just normal for a dog that's middle aged or a dog that's approaching their senior years. And it's like, no, it's a lot of, environmental inputs, especially the food. And gosh, I remember when I first was wrapping my head around the raw meaty bones, that was terrifying. But
It is.
I understood all of the science behind it, the stomach acid, and I just went all in. My puppy came home at 8 weeks old, and I started him on chicken necks and duck necks and chicken feet,
Mhm.
and it was really scary the first time I did it. So I know anyone listening are thinking, it's really hard to we've been conditioned to believe that bones are bad. All bones are bad, but really it's just our cooked bones. And
Right.
even cooked bones, I don't want anyone to ever feed cooked bones, but gosh, I know so many people that just throw out carcasses for their dogs. They eat them and they do fine, but it is a big risk factor. I wanna make
Well,
that clear.
yeah, I
But
would
they're
never recommend
yeah,
cooked bones. However,
no,
cooked poultry bones are still, especially, they're not going to be. When
still
you're talking
soft.
cooked bones, when people give their dogs those big femur bones that you get at the big box stores and
Yeah,
they're cooked and they're
yeah.
flavored, I mean, you're basically giving flavored cement to your dog. Those are the ones that are going to break their teeth.
Mm,
Those are the ones that are going to cause a lot of issues. And we never
yeah.
talk about that. But when we talk in um my workshop, we go through each component and we always start with bones. And we talk a lot about how to get over that fear because it's real. If
Mhm.
you have a lab that's
Yeah.
never been given a bone before, you can't just hand them a big raw meaty bone. It can swallow it whole.
Mhm.
You can have disastrous results. I've heard horrendous stories of people not knowing what they're doing and doing that. So that's one of the first
Yeah.
things I talk to people about. You've got a dog new to this, you hold on to that bone, you watch how they chew it. You cut it up in small
Mhm.
pieces. If they're a gulper, you cut those bones into 1 inch pieces. If they swallow a 1 inch piece, it's going to be fine. If they swallow a 10-inch
Yes.
neck, it's not going to be fine. So, we
Yeah.
talk you through all of that and we make sure you're giving the right type of edible bones versus recreational bones. Those big femurs
Mhm.
that are raw, if you want to let your dog chew on those, get all that good meat off the outside, get that bone marrow out of the
Mhm.
inside, that's great. But then take the bone away. Don't let them continue to chew on
Yes.
that. And if people are like, oh, I could never get it away from my dog, then don't give it. If you don't have that relationship with your dog that you can trade it with a different high value treat,
Mhm.
or the dog will just walk away from it. I mean, I can take anything out of my dog's mouth. She doesn't, fight it at all. Um, and
Mhm.
supervising, she's my dog's a methodic chewer,
Yeah.
but I still watch her
Mhm.
every time. I'm there
Mhm.
to intercept if there's an issue. There's a few of the real dog box treats and chews that I'll give her as I'm leaving because I know they're safe for her. But for the most part,
Yeah.
anything big, I'm right there while she's chewing, and she's been doing it for 2 years. There's inherent risks to bone, but you can overcome that.
Mhm.
And you just, again, it's a lot of common sense. So,
Yes, for sure. Anytime I speak about raw meaty bones online, I'm like always trying to make it very clear because some people still in their minds, it's the only bones you can give a dog are the marrow bones and the knuckle bones. And there is a very distinct difference between the recreational and those soft, edible,
Yeah.
digestible bones that
Hmm.
have meat attached to them. And yeah, and I too still always supervise. And if he's left with someone, I give him a grind or something instead.
Hmm.
I don't put that on anyone to watch him
Hmm.
eat bones because I know it's scary. But yeah, I mean, the dental benefits are just
Yeah.
unbelievable, and then the enrichment and the stimulation, because our dogs really shouldn't have dental problems. Like the veterinary dental industry shouldn't really exist. Like,
Exactly.
talk to me about that. Like,
Okay. That is one of
yeah.
the, I think it is the most common veterinary visit, because up to 85% of dogs will have periodontal disease by the age of 3. Now, if you're saying that kibble will control that, and 90% of the dogs in the US are being fed kibble, then only 10% of those dogs should have any periodontal disease. The math doesn't work. And so you need to give them something that stimulates their mouth, that is appropriate for their mouth. Kibble is not. It's all, like I said, it's carbs. They can't even process that. Bones actually, when they're chewing on them, it gives them the natural um, behavior to chew. Dogs chew. That's a natural behavior. And it's a calming behavior. It's a self-calming behavior. So, these people that get so mad that their dogs are chewing on shoes or something, they're just trying to self-regulate and self-calm because you're
Yes.
not giving them
Not being
anything
bad. Yeah.
appropriate. No,
Yeah.
it's a species appropriate behavior using the wrong tool. And so when I need to get a couple of hours. Like every time I do a workshop online, they're 2 hours long. And I know my dog gets bored with me talking on the screen instead of to her. So I always have a really high value chew for her. And she knows when I'm setting up,
Mhm.
she knows I'm getting set up for the workshop. And she's right there. She's like, oh, I'm going to get
Oh.
something. And it may take her like 20 minutes to chew that, but it just relaxes her. She lays by my feet the rest of the time, doesn't bother me. And so it's a naturally calming thing. It works the jaw muscles, it's mental stimulation, but then it really helps the teeth, like you said. So it's literally
Mhm.
going to scrape those teeth. It's going to get in between, like necks have all those tendons and, um, the sinew, all the tissues in those when you feed the necks. And those are going to almost like
Yeah.
floss the teeth. They're going to get in those crevices. And so you've got a much better dental environment, oral environment for the animal. And that
Mhm.
sets up their entire body for health. If they have a very poor quality mouth, the rest of the body is not going to be healthy. So that in of itself is a really great value for feeding bones. And we recognize that not all dogs can eat bones, especially as they age, or if you got them as an
Mhm.
older dog and it's a small dog and they may have very
Mhm.
few teeth. So, we talk about the alternatives of grinding the food with the bone ground in. I think that's the best alternative because that bone still has all of those properties that are good about bones, all those nutrients in there and balanced because nature knows how to
Yeah.
balance. So, but there's, bone meal, there's, a couple other options, but we talk people through that too during the workshop. So,
Yeah, because feeding a species appropriate diet in general, a lot of what's building up on our dog's teeth are the sugars from
mhm,
the carbs and the starches and the kibble. So it's just laughable that kibble companies and vets will try to say that kibble cleans teeth. I mean, most dogs are actually inhaling the kibble. They're not really chewing it anyway. So
yes, exactly. Yes. Very
yeah, and
little
then
chewing
that's
going
probably one
on.
of the most common questions I get is, "Well, my dog needs a dental and I don't wanna put them under anesthesia." I'm like, "Well, when it gets to that point, oral health is that important that you
Yes.
really do need to get that addressed." And unfortunately,
Yes.
it's not getting to that place in the first place, and that's by feeding species appropriate food and
Mhm.
preferably bones if a dog can handle it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even
Mm.
all of the other components, like, we really push for fish being part of the diet. Those omega-3
Yeah.
fatty acids are going to reduce the inflammation. They're going to prime the body for a healthier environment and even the mouth. And the oral microbiome is more stable if they've had real food and real, meat and the things that the mouth is made for. So,
Yeah.
it's aside from bones are a very big factor, but there's more even to it than that with the mouth. And just getting all of those nutrients in. Hold on a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. I was
And
trying to figure
on
out
that
what she
note
was doing.
too.
Come here.
Oh, that's okay. You were kind
Okay.
of breaking up for a second, so this might be a good time
Okay.
to pause anyway.
Good.
Do what you
Okay.
need to do. I can edit
Yeah,
all
no,
this
I'm
out.
good now. She was just kinda wandering around. I'm like, "What are you doing?" You know how it is with the dog.
What
"What did
breed is
you
she?
do?" She's an Australian Shepherd Poodle mix, an Aussie Doodle. Come here.
Oh.
She's 3. I
Oh,
got
and
her
she's 2, you said?
3. I got her at a rescue. Come here.
3.
Come over here. You want to come up? Come here. Okay. This is Blossom. This is my Y, is what I tell people. And,
Oh, your
and
why?
she's got a
I
total
know.
species
Hi,
appropriate,
baby.
diet, but
Oh,
she's
she's
got some
beautiful.
weird things going on with her. Yeah. So, she's has chronic ear issues and we're trying to get
Um,
the root cause of it. I mean, she's got all great food and, um,
yeah.
there's it's nothing's perfect. And so,
No.
she's taught me so much since I got her 2 years ago. I got her out of rescue. And so
Mhm.
she was on kibble for her first year and,
Mhm.
I took her off of it within 2 weeks of getting her, but she's had chronic ear issues ever since I got her, and so I'll get one ear cleared up and the other ear kicks in, so it's really frustrating.
Honestly, I battle the same thing with my dog. He's naturally reared from the start and like no vaccines, raw fed, and he has alternating ear stuff too that I've
Mhm.
been trying to work through.
Yeah.
So what have you been trying to do?
Well,
Let
I've
me see if
tried
I can take some
almost
notes from you.
everything, and I'm actually gonna call into the vet. I'm gonna take her tomorrow. I'm hoping for her right ear. Her left ear was chronically inflamed and just black
Yeah.
stuff coming out, and we tried everything,
Yeah.
and finally I said, "Okay, I think we're ready for steroids." And he packed the ear with an antifungal, and there was like a almost like a petroleum jelly with it, and we left it in there for 3
Yeah.
weeks, and it totally cleared up, and a week later, her right ear
Wow.
came infected. And so I've been trying to do that for the last 2
Well,
weeks.
that makes sense. The body's like, I'm trying to
Okay.
do something
I
and you
know,
stop this side.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm gonna see about getting that right ear packed. I may pack them both, and then in the meantime, um so yeah, we've just been, trying all different things. I've tried ozone drops, I've tried, antifungal stuff, flushing it, doing, to get better,
Yeah.
and then it gets worse. And I know a lot of hers is stress related. Whenever she
Okay.
gets stressed, it comes through her skin. And we had a
Yes. Which is
stressful.
good. It's good she expresses that
Yeah,
way. Yeah.
exactly. And we did have a stressful few days up. I took her on a travel a trip with me, um, and she did go through some stress with that. So I don't know if that exacerbated it, but it just seems to be getting worse instead of better. So we're gonna
Ugh,
succumb to going to the vet again.
that's interesting because yeah, see, Pine, I've been dealing with fleas
Mm.
for like a year straight.
Ugh,
Not too bad, it's manageable, but I think that inflammation expresses through his
yeah,
ears. Because I've played around with the diet very minimally, but he doesn't. I mean, the diet doesn't seem to be giving him any other
that's
problems. So
exactly.
I do think it's stress related. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
For
So
sure.
they
Yeah.
they
So
challenge us.
let's they do. They do. Do you use any homeopathy at all? Have you tried any of
I
that?
have not. I'm not versed in that,
Yeah.
and, I don't have. I've looked around, there's nobody around here that does it. I do use an integrative vet,
Yeah.
but he doesn't do any homeopathy, so
Okay. Yeah, that's
that's
something to consider. You
I
can get
know.
a little kit, and it
Yeah,
it
yeah.
comes with the booklet that, tells you the symptoms, and usually that helps with Pine. I gave him a remedy a couple days ago, and I've actually seen a major shift finally in his ear. Because he's had one where his left ear, it's just been probably 3 or 4 weeks straight where it looks red, and it doesn't bother him though.
Uh,
That was why I was kind of not messing with it. No head shaking,
mhm.
no real itching at it, no pain, no heat, no foul smell. So I'm just looking at it like this should be bothering you.
Yeah.
Like,
It's bothering
but
me.
it did start to have the wax and the yeasty
Mhm.
dark come out and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna intervene now. So but yeah. But I've learned, those are just messengers, and we have to
Right.
just appreciate that they're showing us that something's going on we need to address instead of
Absolutely. Yeah.
panicking.
Yeah, they can't tell
Yeah.
us, so we have to
So
watch
I
for
wanna
those signs.
exactly, I've definitely learned to embrace the symptoms more
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure. I wanna talk to you about synthetic vitamins and minerals
Okay.
in foods.
Uh-huh.
What are your
What are
thoughts
my
on that?
thoughts?
I mean, obviously they're not good, but
Right.
we see a lot of pre-made, the commercial raw food coming available, and I think that's where so many people get really confused. I can't tell you
Yes.
the number of people are like, "What do you think about this brand?" I'm like, "Well, if you're gonna spend that amount of money, you might as well spend the same amount on this food that uses whole foods
Right.
only, and this is why." So, what is your take on that?
With
So we
synthetic
were talking
vitamins
about
and
synthetics.
minerals.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. So
Yeah.
to start with, the reason they put them in kibble is because kibble's basically a dead food. They have cooked it at such high temperatures that everything is lost in it. So they have to put it back in, the vitamins and minerals at the end, because there's none there.
Mhm.
I mean, minerals,
Yeah.
they may alter, they may be more in there, but definitely most of those vitamins, they have to put them back. And that's why it makes me laugh when I see foods that emphasize fortified with vitamins and minerals. Well, you have to fortify them with vitamins and minerals because you've destroyed everything, like cereals and stuff for humans.
Yes.
So
Yes.
the problem with synthetics is the body doesn't recognize them the same. So it doesn't
Yeah.
utilize them the same way. And that is where you
Mhm.
get into issues. So you could have deficiencies, or you could actually create toxicities if the body takes them up too readily as synthetics.
Yeah.
And it's just, again, nature doesn't make mistakes. So you need those natural vitamins and minerals to hook into the receptors in the body. And if they're not exactly right, they might still hook in, but not quite right, and not really metabolically do
Mhm.
what they need to do. They can block
Mhm.
for the natural ones to actually bind and cause issues that way.
Mhm.
So I try to avoid them at all costs with the dog and even
Yeah.
myself. Because
Yeah.
the body just doesn't know what to do with them. Trying to make whole food commercially without any synthetics is not an easy task, and that's why there's a higher price point, but it is doable, and you just have to, pick the right all the right combination. But let's talk about that whole complete and balanced anyway, okay? So
Yeah.
kibble is
Yeah.
complete and
Yeah.
balanced. It's not species
Mhm.
appropriate, but it's complete and balanced according to AFCO.
Uh-huh.
So what that means is they've got those minimum nutrient requirements met that the NRC guidelines have set up. So NRC, the National Research Council,
Mhm.
they went through all these studies, and they created this list of what minimums a dog needs on a daily basis. First of all those studies were done
Mhm.
on kibble-fed dogs or ultra-processed food, some kind of ultra-processed food. So they're not looking at fresh food bioavailability. They're looking at this reinforced kibble that they had to go fortify with vitamins and minerals. And they're looking at minimums. Okay. And so I like to point out, like, dogs can produce vitamin C. They produce enough to survive, but to thrive, especially during stress, to give them extra vitamin C. There are studies on that. It actually is very
Yeah.
beneficial to give your dog some vitamin C, especially
Mhm.
during stress. So that's a very good example. The body can make it, and it makes enough to survive on a day-to-day basis, but not to thrive. There's going to be a gap there.
Yeah.
And so that's the same with
Yeah.
these vitamins and minerals that are added back. Yes, your dog is going to survive, and they can overcome some of the things, but it doesn't mean they're thriving. And that's when you're going to see, like you said, when they start to age, and like, oh, well, all dogs slow down, all dogs gain weight, all dogs lose cognitive function. They don't have to.
Mhm.
They can live very long, happy lives without those issues. And,
Yeah.
people are the same way. Yeah.
Yeah, so at a minimum, you know, because it gets frustrating. I know when I first switched to raw, I
Hmm.
used a certain company and I was really proud, and that's all I knew. I mean, I only knew about the companies that advertised heavily or on
Yeah.
TV. So I switched to a raw brand and I was really proud of it. And when my first dog got diagnosed with cancer, I started working with a holistic vet,
Uh-huh.
and I talked to her nutritionist on staff first, and I was so proud to tell her what I was feeding. And she's like, "Well, we're not going to feed that because they use HPP and they have synthetic vitamins and minerals." So just took all the wind out of my sails. I was like, "Well, I thought I was doing so great. This is working. Like she's just over exaggerating. Like that. How big of a deal can that be? They're just vitamins and minerals." So then, fast forward a month or two, and my other dog was diagnosed with cancer. And
Mm.
that's when I finally looked into it more and was like, I can't take any more chances because at a minimum, biology is not really that predictable or perfect. So we don't
Right?
know how a dog is going to handle synthetics. But at a minimum, their body's using more energy to
Mhm.
try and figure out what this stuff is because it's not in its natural bioavailable form. And we don't want that.
Right.
And most of the brands that are out there are negligibly different in price
Mhm.
for whole food
Right.
balance. I mean, some are cheaper. Some whole food balanced
I know.
formulas are cheaper than the ones with synthetics. It's just being an educated consumer and knowing which ones to pick. So I try to drill that into people's heads a lot, but it's so misleading because you'll see all these beautiful ingredients
Mhm.
and then this long list of vitamins and minerals that look like, "Oh yeah, I want to make sure my dog has these
Right.
vitamins." Great. So it's really misleading. They can slowly or quickly be very dangerous to some dogs, so it's best to avoid them.
Yes.
And that's why I think it's also best to source and prepare food yourself, which is why I'm always pointing
Absolutely.
people to you because that gives you the ultimate control. There's no guesswork. You know where food's coming from.
Mhm.
I love it.
And those are
Yeah.
things that we talk about in the course and in the workshops is that sourcing is really important. Um,
Uh-huh.
and also how the variety that you give. You talked earlier about
Mhm.
how, the vet said always feed this exact thing.
Yeah.
And then you've got
Yeah.
this very limited nutrient profile. Whereas if you're giving variety,
Yeah.
everything you give is going to have a different nutrient profile and it's going to add all those different nutrients and combine them all. Which, I mean, is how
Yeah.
I eat, it's how you eat, it's how we fed our
Yeah.
kids, but all of a sudden we can't feed our dogs, it's like we're too dumb to feed our
Yeah.
dogs. It's so frustrating to me. And one of the other things
Yeah.
that we um, talk about during the courses is how to read a label, and see what really
Mhm.
is in those and look at,
Mhm.
you'll see a label that'll have the word pea in it 3 times, and they're all the same ingredient, but they've split them apart so that they're lower down in that ingredient list. So it could be pea
Yeah.
protein, it can be, I don't know what all they've listed in their pea fiber, this and
Yeah.
that. It's all coming from
Yeah.
that same thing. And looking even at the protein content. If it's a bunch of plant protein versus animal protein, they can still put it as protein, but it's not a, an animal protein. And so it's not a plant protein isn't going to have all of the essential amino acids that the dog needs.
Mm.
So the protein content looks good, but is the quality of the protein what you need? And that's where we're
Yeah.
talking source of where those proteins and fats come from. So,
Yeah. So, I mean, all of this sounds a little overwhelming and confusing probably to people, but it's really simple. Just feed them real food.
yeah,
Then you
yeah.
don't have to worry about all that stuff.
Yes. And I think using
um,
the feed reel calculator just really simplifies it. It
oh,
shows
yes.
you, what it is
Oh,
you need to do. There's so much information on that. You click
oh,
all
yeah.
those little
I use it.
buttons. Yeah. I mean, I do. I
Yeah.
use it all the time. I even use
Yeah.
it to go out to my freezer to get stuff for prepping. I want to make sure I'm getting enough of everything.
Yeah.
The
Oh, yeah.
last thing
That's
you want to
definitely
do is
part
be
of
in
my
the middle of
routine.
prep. Yeah. And have not everything thought
Yeah.
out. And so,
Oh, no.
um,
It's a great tool. I mean, that's the the feed reel calculator is the lowest commitment and just gives so much information and
mhm.
guidance. And then there's the 2-hour workshop, and then there's the courses. So you guys have it all laid out depending on how
Yeah.
deep people want to go. But I've found it to be so much fun and so exciting to do DIY raw feeding because
Mhm.
the sky's the limit. And I just love going to local farms and farmers market
Mhm.
and finding different mushrooms and different organs and cuts of meat where I'm like, "Oh, he's gonna love this." It just becomes fun when you learn that you don't have to feed the same thing every
Yeah.
single day. It's so
Um,
much fun, and
and it's a
yeah,
bonding
go ahead.
exercise, and we tell
Yeah.
people if it's not fun, don't do it because energetically you're
Yes.
going to create if you're, resenting doing
Yeah.
that with your dog, yeah, they're gonna feel it. Like, when
Yeah.
I'm doing food prep,
Yes.
she's right there waiting for me to drop something, and it's,
Oh,
a
yeah.
game to us, and, I'm always
Uh-huh.
talking to her, "Look what I found," and, but I wanna go back, you
Yeah.
made the comment about budget. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yes.
It's one of the
Oh,
things we talked
yes,
about in the
yes, we need to
workshop.
talk about that. But that
Yeah.
goes with, making it fun and not stressful. Let's talk about
Right.
budget. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feed my 80-pound dog, or my 40-pound dog, sorry, but 40-pound dog about $80 a month. And that's
Okay.
100%
I
raw.
need to learn from you on how to do that.
And of course, it depends on where you're
Yeah.
living. I'm in Middle Tennessee. Some of
Uh-huh.
your bigger cities are going to be a little more expensive. But the
Yeah.
way I do it is I found a local co op, and I say local, I have to drive an hour to get my stuff
Oh,
from
yeah.
there. I'm in rural Tennessee, so nothing's more anywhere closer than 20 minutes away at least. So an hour is not a big
I
deal.
hear you.
Just fine. I chose to live here.
Mhm.
Um, so
Yeah.
I go to the local co op. He gets everything curated from all the local farms and things. So I get a box. I buy in bulk. So I'll buy 40 pounds of trim from beef that they've trimmed off as they're cutting it for the people's freezers, and they want nice little cuts of meat. There's tons of meat that comes off of there, and I get
Yeah.
it anywhere from $2 to $3 a pound, depending on what he is able to find.
Amazing. Yeah.
And so I get bones that way. The duck necks and turkey necks are usually between 250 and $3 a pound if I buy them in 30-pound boxes. Um, so that's one way that I really, really save. He has great buys on fish. Um, I don't use raw organs because I'm very spoiled with Real Dog Box has the air dried organ, the ground mix that you put
Yeah.
two little
Yeah.
teaspoons in her food every day. And it's like, that's what I
Yeah.
do. But organs are another area you
Okay.
can buy really cheaply. A lot of your ethnic markets have them. You can do that, and you can
Mhm.
get them very cheap. And what I tell people with organs is if you get a big slab of liver, freeze it down, take it out, and cut it when it's just slightly thawed. It's a
Yes.
lot easier to cut that way, and cut it into the size pieces that you want and freeze it back down. It's going to save you so much on
Mhm.
prep time. That can be really cheap. Um,
Yeah.
and then as far as other muscle meat ideas, I'd have known people to go to their local grocery store and talk to the butcher in the back. They'll get that trim for
Mhm.
almost nothing. Some of them will get it for free. They're just throwing it away. They're like, what do you do with all that trim that
Yeah.
you are trimming off to make those pretty little cuts for the counter there? So I've had people,
Mhm.
they take buckets and every day they go in, or certain days a week, they get all of that for free. I've had people go in and, like after Thanksgiving, go in and buy a bunch of turkeys that are on clearance, stick them in their freezer. Now,
Mhm.
all of this that I'm talking about is you're committing to buying in bulk, and that's huge. The first
Yeah.
thing I did when I bought this house was I bought a freezer. So I knew I was going to do this.
Mhm.
And the other person that I help prep for, he has a huge freezer, so I can always use his freezer too. And that makes a huge difference. But the other day,
Mhm.
I had somebody, she knows that I do this for my dog. And she's like, we're moving. We have all this extra meat in our freezer. We don't want to have to take it with us. Well, do you want it? Of
Yeah.
course I want it. I get 30, 40 pounds
Yes.
of meat
Yeah.
for free for the dogs.
Mhm. Yeah.
And they're hunters, and a lot of it was stuff they were going to feed to their dog, but they never got around to it. So it was perfect. And she's like, oh, and I have this
Just
quail, and
perfect.
the person that processed it, they left feathers in, and I'm just frustrated with it. Will the dogs eat it? I'm like, of course they'll eat that. They don't care about those
That's
feathers. And
gold. Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so, I'm constantly, and I have talked to farmers. I get the heads from the chickens and turkeys as they process. They were throwing them
Mhm.
away. I'm like, don't throw them away. They're great for the dogs. So you can form these relationships and get them that. Talk to hunters,
Mhm.
talk to farmers, butchers, all those
Mhm.
different ways. Find those sales, buy in bulk. If you have a
Yeah.
local co-op, that's the best way to get a lot of the meat for a really good price, meat and bones.
Yeah, because all of that stuff that's inedible for
Yeah.
humans is just going to go to waste. So I really love that side of it. And that's probably the only thing I like about the kibble industry is that they are using a lot of waste.
Yeah.
But you could go out and source good, clean waste from these trusted sources
Right.
for so cheap, and like you said, sometimes for free because they're otherwise going to throw it away. You've
Mhm.
actually inspired me because I have a farm store that I visit a lot, and they've been carrying more chicken. I'm like, I do need to ask them about their heads and their
Mhm.
feet,
Mhm.
any leftovers.
Yeah.
It becomes so easy, and you're right, that
Yeah.
big hurdle is where am I gonna put all of it? And just just bite the bullet and get the freezer. Just get
Yes.
the freezer.
Yes.
That's a must. And then you're like, "Okay, I wanna fill it." And then you get more motivation.
Absolutely.
And you have to buy in bulk. Even if you're
Mhm.
doing commercial food, which is very expensive, the pre-made raw, buying in bulk is gonna save you a little bit of money there too, but
Right.
you'll learn quickly going
Yeah.
down that path that you'd rather just make it yourself for
Mhm.
multiple reasons because you have control and because you save so much money and then you feel good about yourself if you do care about the planet because
Yeah.
you're utilizing things that would otherwise be wasted. So I love
Absolutely.
all of that advice.
Yeah, and
That's
that's
huge.
what
And
the co-ops
$80 a month.
yeah,
Like,
that's what the co-ops are doing. They're
yeah.
pulling in all those parts that they're not going to use.
Yeah.
Yeah, 80 that's about $80 a month, and, sometimes
And
it's a
that's
little
less
higher
than
if I
the
can't,
kibble.
but that's average. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, and so, yeah, I'm constantly scanning for Facebook groups a lot of times, if you put out there that you'll take freezer
Uh-huh.
dumps, people will go through
Yeah.
their freezer and be like, "I've had this meat for a year and it's gonna have freezer burn." Dogs don't care. That's a human thing.
No, I don't
They
care.
don't care.
No.
And
They're like
so
buzzards. Their
yeah,
guts can handle anything.
they're facultative
Yeah.
carnivores. They scavengers,
Yes.
basically. They will eat what
Yes.
yeah. So there are ways that
Yeah.
you can make it doable. And
Yeah.
time-wise, with driving up to the co-op and, buying those big 40-pound boxes, I do have to break those down then and, so I can utilize
Mhm.
them easier. I put between
Yeah.
6 and 8 hours a month into with the
Okay.
travel and everything, into taking care of my dog's food. 6 to 8 hours because people are
And,
like, "I don't have time." I think you do.
we
You
all
just
have
have to make
time.
it.
We
Yeah.
do.
Just eke that out
Yeah,
and,
now everyone's doom scrolling. Yeah, you
yeah,
can cut out 5 minutes of scrolling
that's right,
Instagram a day
every
to
day
feed your
and put
dog
it
raw food.
yeah, and so I
Yeah.
I give people the 2 scenario. I have 2 dogs that I prep for. I usually do 2 weeks at a time, and it takes me 2 hours to do that, and that's start to finish. Disinfecting everything, cleaning
Yeah,
everything up, getting
for
everything put
2
away.
dogs.
So, yeah, it's very doable
That's
once
amazing.
you get comfortable with it.
Yeah, I found I've just got 1 dog now, so I keep some pre-made raw on hand that I'll rotate in, but I do once a week put together at least 5 days worth of
Mhm.
meals, and that's kinda where I just do 5 to 7 days worth at a time. But I found that the more I've used the calculator, the more I've created the meals, the more I don't really even need to weigh or,
Right.
I
Get
can kinda
used to it.
eyeball and I'm kind
Mhm.
of you get more efficient at it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't worry
and then it's
about,
always fun when you get down to
I
Go
was
ahead.
gonna say when you look at the calculator, it gives you every component, down to the 1/100th of an ounce. I don't worry about all
Yeah.
that. She gets a pound of food, and if it's a little extra bone today, there'll be less tomorrow, and that's the other thing you learn.
Exactly.
Like when I get turkey heads at Thanksgiving from this farmer, some of those turkey heads are a pound. I mean, they're huge. She grows these ginormous turkeys, and so that'll be her whole meal. And for 2 or 3
Yeah,
days later, she doesn't get any bone because that thing is like 75% bone. So you learn how to balance over time. You learn how to utilize all that, and do
yeah.
it in a way that is beneficial to the dog. So, yeah,
Oh, yeah, and it's so fun because it just connects you so much more, like you said, the
yeah,
bonding aspect, and then you really learn how their bodies work, and you really start to think of things in a more wild animal way because they are animals at the end of the day, and then it gets you thinking about your own diet too. I know I've
absolutely.
been trying to incorporate more organs in what I eat because these are nature's multivitamin,
Absolutely.
and we as humans, or at least in our country, we don't eat
I know.
organs. It's not the norm, and we should be. It's the most
Absolutely.
valuable part.
Yes.
Yeah, so I've been so inspired by learning how to feed him better.
Mhm.
Um, I wanted to segue into I know it's tough. Obviously, you've covered budget. So most people complain about time, they complain about the money, but I mean, those barriers to me are kind of like artificial. if you learn how important
Mhm.
it is to feed your dog fresh, you can save so much money. Your dog's so much happier, and I used to be more lenient where I would say, "Okay, you can feed kibble and you can mix in some fresh food," but really the ultimate goal is to just feed as fresh as possible,
Mhm.
and, like, what are your thoughts on that? You've been doing this
Yeah.
a long time. Do you try and, beat around the bush, or do you just get to the point and say, "You've gotta feed your dog
Yeah.
real food?"
Well, we
Yeah,
understand that not everybody can jump right in, and so we meet people where they are. And oftentimes
yeah,
I'll start, people will say, "Oh, I just can't afford or I can't, I don't have the time." I'm like, "Okay, well, let's
yeah,
let's look at what you can do. What are you comfortable doing?" And we start with that dog
yeah,
in front of them. So, let's say somebody comes to me with a bully breed that's inflamed and itchy, the skin is a mess, and they're just feeding, a
mhm,
Kirkland's kibble or something, Purina or whatever. I'm like,
yeah,
"Okay, so one thing let's try. Let's try removing some of that kibble and we're going to get some fish in that diet." That alone
mhm,
is going to balance the omega fatty acids. Kibble is very, very high in omega 6 fatty acids. It can be 30 to 1 omega 6 to omega 3. And if you understand that omega 6s are
mhm,
inflammatory, omega 3s are anti inflammatory. So if your kibble has
mhm,
a huge amount of omega 6 in it, and you can add some, just adding small fatty fish, that is going to give them a high level of omega 3 fatty acids, right there, you're going to get some calming of that skin. And they will see that very quickly. They'll be like, wow, a week ago my dog's skin
yeah,
was all red and all of a sudden it's not. And then they're
mhm,
like, tell me more. And so, really, or if it's a dog that has mobility issues. So we're going to say, well, the omegas work really well for that. But also, let's get some things that are good with cartilage and collagen in them. Let's add some bone broth. Let's add the omega 3, fatty acids, and any cartilaginous things. I just gave her a piece of beef backstrap that's almost all cartilage. And so,
mhm,
again, within a week or so, they're going to see the dog's mobility start to change. And then they're like, okay, tell me
yeah,
more, So that's where
yeah,
I meet them there and we look at what's going on with the dog and try to hit one of those
mhm,
major points and watch the dog improve very quickly at
mhm,
just that small amount. And then they're like, "Oh, wait, this is working. This is true," So,
uh-huh,
and then we
yeah,
go from there. And it's really frustrating for me at times because people don't follow through, and it's really hard for me, that
yeah,
yeah, I did it for a while and yeah, the skin was looking better, but I didn't like the smell of the fish or, whatever their
oh,
excuse is.
yeah.
And then they come
I
back
hate
to
that, or
me.
I can't clean the bowl. I don't like to wipe out the bowls every day. I'm like,
Yeah.
"What?
Yeah.
Like,
You wash
this is
your food bowls
your
every day.
child."
Yeah.
I know. Oh, it breaks
So
my heart.
it I try to meet them where they're at and then we work at it, from there. So it's a
Yeah.
lot of frustration at times and it can be really frustrating
Mhm.
at times. But otherwise,
Yeah.
you just have to try and get them to understand. Come here, over here. So,
Yeah, and that leads me into another question. There's so much, like, conflicting information about can you feed raw or gently cooked and kibble, like,
mhm,
in the same bowl, in the
mhm,
same week, and you
mhm.
can.
You can,
It's
you
okay.
can.
Yeah.
What I
Yeah.
tell people
Yeah.
is if they are introducing raw meaty bones, and they want to add
Mhm.
that to the kibble, I tell them to feed that separately because it is better if
Okay.
the stomach acid can get really low down to that battery acid level
Okay.
as they're processing
Yeah.
those bones, and it's not going to with that kibble in there. So that's what
Yeah.
I tell them. If you want to do that, then do the bones separately and then feed the kibble a separate
Mhm.
meal and give, several hours in between. And I do that with
Yeah.
my dog anyway. She gets her bones in the morning and then she gets everything else later. And that's what works for
Oh,
her.
wow, that's an interesting tip.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what works for
Mm.
her. If I give her bones later in the
Yeah.
day, sometimes, not
Mhm.
always, but sometimes in the morning, she'll have like bile pukes, where before she eats,
Yeah.
and there'll be bits of bone in
Mhm.
there. So I think the body isn't processing them during the night for some reason. For her, I know other people do it totally the opposite way and it works. And again, that's the other thing that we
Mhm.
really emphasize is you're feeding that dog in front of you and
Yeah.
you watch their poops. Are they runny? Are they too hard? Are they, and you adjust accordingly. Um, it's always
Mhm.
feeding the dog in front of you for us.
Yes. Yeah, and I love that. I mean, I still haven't taken the full course, but I did the 2-hour workshop. I
Mhm.
utilized the calculator, and I still can't believe how much you guys fit into that 2-hour workshop. Because
I
it's beyond food.
yeah.
Like, you touch on vaccines and flea and tick preventative, you touch on so many important things while helping get build confidence in feeding raw and showing how to create a
Mhm.
raw plate or bowl, and it's just amazing. So,
Yeah,
I'm grateful for you
I've gone
guys,
for,
and
and I don't cut it off at 2 hours because, if we've got good engagement with people, we've
Oh,
gone as
yeah.
long as 3.5 hours, and that's unusual. Usually it's closer to 2, but if I've got a really engaging
Yeah.
group and they have a lot of questions, we'll keep going. I'm
Mhm.
not gonna leave questions unanswered. And it's a really I love the community because it's people from all walks
Mhm.
of life. I mean, I had one workshop that there were 8 people on the call and there was not one US citizen on that call. It was all over the world. And
Oh my
so
god.
it was so exciting, from Asia to Canada to I think we had somebody in South America that time in Australia, and they're all coming together and all bringing their different perspectives. And some of the countries are so much farther ahead of us. In the UK, I think it's like
Mhm.
25% of the people feed raw. Um,
Oh,
so it's really
great.
good to get
Yeah.
their when they come on, get their perspective. And even sourcing, we talk about some countries it's really easy to source organs. Sometimes it's really hard. Different parts of the US, it's harder.
Mhm.
So we talk about ways to source. And we try to hit on all of those points during that workshop. And again, it really depends on who's in it. I've got a set agenda, but we can go way beyond that agenda if people have questions. And often do.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, I love that. So for anyone listening, no matter where you're at, you can take that workshop to just get a feel.
Mhm.
Take the course if you get even more interested, which I highly encourage. But yeah, no matter where you're at, if you want to do gently cooked, you guys will even talk about that, right?
Mhm.
To
Oh,
some degree.
absolutely. Yeah, we talk about it. We're doing it more and
Yeah,
more because more and more people are worried about
yeah,
the raw. And so we will talk about gently cooked, but we also talk about how to mitigate the worries about raw. Common sense. Like you said earlier about
yeah.
washing
Talk
the
about that a
bowls.
little bit.
Yeah, because that's one of the things that
Yeah,
veterinarians almost always bring up immediately. Almost always.
yeah.
And so we just start with common
Mhm,
sense. You have separate tools for the raw meats and
mhm,
stuff, which you should have in your kitchen anyway if you're handling any raw meat.
mhm,
Raw cutting boards, that kind of thing. We talk, you wash the bowls every day. Like everything that she uses every day,
mhm.
it gets washed, just like part of my dishes,
Yeah, yeah. The
And I've
water
been
bowl too. Yep.
water bowl, yep, every day.
Mhm,
And um, you keep like I've got the doodle I showed you. She's got the bearded face. I keep that trim. I keep it
uh-huh,
cleaned. Um, and
mhm,
people that are really worried, they can keep it a lot cleaner and more trimmed. They can wash it off every time if they want. Cleaning up of the stools after them. Keeping your yard free of dog piles. Um, I'm
mhm.
missing one of them. The top. Just disinfecting when you're done prepping. This is just common sense
Yeah.
things that you would
Mhm.
do in your own, making your own meals. And when you're making chicken from the
Yeah.
grocery store, up to 20% of that chicken can have salmonella and pass to
Mhm.
go into the grocery store.
Yeah.
With the raw
Mhm.
feeding, the commercial raw, there's a 0% tolerance. The FDA, if there's anything, they yank it. And so it's a very big discrepancy. And I think, again, we've got some lobbying going on from big kibble companies that are
Mhm.
trying to keep the raw out of there. So I personally think that the whole, worrying about everybody being sick, there is a really good study that came out of, I believe it's either Sweden or Finland. Over
Mhm.
16,000 households were participated in the study that are feeding raw, and there was 3
Yeah.
incidents of possible links to salmonella in that
Wow,
1,600 and
that's profound data.
16,500 and some, yeah. And during that same time span, over 300 cases of salmonella from kibble were reported.
Yeah.
Kibble is
Mhm.
not salmonella free or E. coli free. And
No.
all of the people that feed kibble, do you ever wash those bowls or that scoop or that container? I mean, there's a lot more chance of
No.
contamination. A lot of people leave it out, and that's
Yeah.
where little kids will go and eat the dog's kibble, and that's when they'll get sick because of the kibble because it's been sitting out.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
that's
you're
the other thing.
opening that
Don't leave.
bag and it's
Yeah.
sitting out and it's hot.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. Don't leave
Ugh.
it out raw. I mean, if your dogs haven't eaten it in a
Mhm.
10-15 minute span, pick it up, either toss it
Yes.
or, whatever you want to do with it. But don't leave it sitting out. That's the other thing. Yeah.
Mhm.
So there's ways to get
Yeah.
around that.
Oh, yeah, it's just common sense, and I am probably I mean, I'm responsible about it, but I'm pretty loose, and it's never been an issue, knock on wood.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never been an issue for my dog, never been an issue for me or my husband, and, like you said, we cook or we handle raw meat for ourselves to
Right.
cook. It's really no different, yeah, it takes some getting used to. I'm trying to put myself back to where I was several years ago where I first started doing it, and it
Uh-huh.
was overwhelming. It did make you feel gross and like
Yeah.
there was just disease everywhere in your kitchen. But you start to get used to it and,
Absolutely.
you realize it's not this terrible thing, and it's actually one of the best things you could possibly do for your dogs or your cats.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really amazing. Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
yeah, it took a little bit for me to get over it, but as soon as I started reading about the benefits of fresh feeding, my my biggest thought was, why did it take me so long to do this?
Yeah.
But like I said, I was in biomedical research and it was a totally different emphasis. And so I give myself grace for that.
Yeah.
But once I
Yeah.
realized it, I'll never go back. So,
Yeah. Yeah. It blows my mind that veterinary professionals study for so long and have no idea what dogs are biologically
yeah.
designed to eat and are completely resistant to it, against it, advising against it.
Hmm.
I remember back when my one of my cancer guys had to get surgery, they wouldn't even let me bring his raw meals
No.
into him.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that was a huge, public safety concern to bring him his raw
I know.
food, even freeze-dried. It's like, wow,
Gosh, I know.
they're
It's
terrified of this stuff, and I live it every day.
exactly. I know. And people are like, "Oh,
Yeah,
don't let your dog, lick you." And I'm like, "Okay, I would be dead a long time ago because this dog is a
I
licker,
know.
and I've never gotten sick." Yeah, it's you have
Yeah,
to have a frame of mind. And I have to stick up for the veterinary profession to one degree. Is that they just
yeah,
that's not what they were taught. They are so indoctrinated
yeah,
into kibble. Now, yes, they
and
should be able to come around and think for themselves and have those aha moments, but they're so overwhelmed. And that's the other thing I talk to them
yeah,
about. If we can get your clients to stop coming in for the same thing over and over and over again, you're not going to be as
mhm,
overwhelmed. And so I'm really
I know.
advocating for technicians to become certified as the certified professional canine nutritionists through us. Then
Oh,
they
yeah,
can have their own
yeah.
revenue stream. They can do those consults for them,
Oh my
and
gosh.
they
Yeah, beautiful
can be the
idea.
ones, really helping the clients. And then the veterinarian can be doing the things that they really need to be doing. And so
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I'm pushing. Haven't gotten real far with it, but we try to get the
Oh, I
CPCNs
know, but
linked in.
you're trying.
Oh, we're trying.
Yeah, it's
We're trying
amazing what
so
could
hard.
happen if we were collaborative, things could be so
Yeah,
much different because that's the excuse you get from a lot of vets, and it's true. They're so overworked because
right,
they're treating things that shouldn't be happening in the first place, that we should be able to manage at home ourselves with a little bit
right,
of knowledge, maybe food therapy, herbs, homeopathy, if something comes up.
right,
And that would free them up to do the magic that they were trained to do, which is save lives in truly
right.
emergency situations or stabilize animals. So I love that idea because the vet techs already do the grunt work. You already
Yeah,
spend more time with the patients. Why not get certified in nutrition and learn some homeopathy, learn
right.
some tools for supporting our dogs better? Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll get there. And that's what I wanted to mention too. Beyond all of the great things you do to teach dog parents, you guys got approved for continuing
yeah.
education credits for vets. So vets can participate in your programs, add a whole new skill set, better animals' lives,
Hmm.
and they get something in return for it,
Yeah,
for their
it gave
time.
them incentive to
Yeah.
do it, and we've seen some of them come
Yeah.
through for that reason, and that's why it was really important
Yeah.
when I started at Feedrill, we were just targeting one course, and then the more we got to talking about it, we're like, we really need to separate this so that we can have a separate course
Yeah.
for the veterinary professional. and get it race approved,
Mhm.
which was not an easy task. It took me almost 9
No.
months to find, because I'm not a board certified nutritionist, so I had to have people that
Mhm.
had advanced degrees in nutrition there, and they had to
Mhm.
endorse me. And there was not one board certified
Mhm.
veterinary nutritionist that would touch it. They wouldn't even, I mean, some of the answers were actually quite rude. And um, I went out into the PhD world and found two animal nutritionists with PhDs that are formulating for zoos. And that's who endorsed me.
Mhm.
But it took a lot.
Well, I admire you for being so persistent because it's really important.
Yeah.
And I'll continue to spread awareness about what you're doing because I want things
Thank
to
you.
change and I want our vets to our veterinary programs and schools to pick this stuff up, you
Yes.
know.
Yes.
Hopefully we'll get there.
There are a couple of vet tech
Yeah.
programs that I do talks with every time, one of their clinical things comes around. They are letting me do a 1 to 2 hour lecture. It's minimal, but it's something. It's getting that out there.
That's
Um,
something.
we also have credits for dog trainers. So, trainers are seeing these dogs that
Oh.
are not trainable because, I mean, think about it. When you
Mhm.
go out to learn something new, if you've only had a bunch of sugar, which is what so many people do with their
Oh,
kids going to school, they feed them sugar cereal in the morning and then they think they're going to sit still at school. It's a whole different topic. Um, but
yeah.
it's the same thing. If we're not feeding our dogs what their body needs and their body is constantly having to work to get the food processed, there's no energy going to the
Yeah.
brain to think about how to train. And so we have
Yeah.
it so that the trainers that are certified through the CCPDT, the Certified Canine Professional Dog Trainer Association, they get
Mhm.
21 CEs for the course, and
Wow.
behaviorists do too. So
Amazing.
that's really encouraging trainers to take the course and add it as part of their offerings, and that has really helped a lot of trainers that I've talked to that have gone through the course. I just did a 2 hour lecture last night with a group of trainers, and they were so enthusiastic about it. We've gone to the big training conference that they hold every year. Last year we went and got really good rapport with those trainers. So making people realize that link between behavior
Mhm.
and nutrition. I've seen very
Yeah.
very aggressive reactive dogs really calm down. I've seen really crazy doodles like this one that I have really calm down. I mean, their bodies
Yeah.
all of a sudden don't have all that energy being taken up,
Um,
and then they can actually think. I like to equate it to moms that are nursing babies. They're so much of their
yeah.
energy is going
They're
into
depleted.
producing
Mhm.
milk, and they literally have what we call baby brain. They cannot concentrate the way they normally would. That's what's going on with the
Yeah.
dogs. Their body is spending so much energy trying to digest that kibble. It can't send the energy anywhere else. So, yeah,
Mhm.
it's a real thing.
Yeah.
I see you.
Gosh. Yeah, I love that. I love to hear that. As trainers have such an important role, and that's just another
Absolutely.
way to show people the power of
Yeah,
giving dogs what they're biologically designed to eat.
absolutely.
Just
Yeah, they
another
have a
way.
huge impact on it.
Yeah. Well, do you have any other piece of wisdom that you would like to add? I feel like I've kept you for way too long at
No,
this
that's
point.
fine. No, it's fine.
And no
Um,
pressure. Yeah.
no, I think we've covered everything. If people really want to dig deep into it, all of our courses, everything is backed by science. There's not a true science that's showing that raw is better than kibble, but the science is there, and I've found it. Where I worked at the University of Notre Dame, when I left there, I was retired. Because of the timing, I was actually able to retire, which meant I could retain all of my benefits. And so, and I didn't know why that was important until I got this job at Feed Real. And what that means is I can get into any article that you want. Like those ones that you see online that are like, pay $59 to read this article. I can get into all of
Yeah.
those articles and pull them down and read through
Okay.
them because I have that link to the Notre Dame libraries. And that has been a huge benefit. And that's where I can dig down deep into these topics and find the articles to support it.
Yeah.
So
Wow. I love that. And those are all available at Feed Real. veterinary.com, right?
Right,
Or
well, we
some of
put those
them.
up. Now I can't put links to a lot of them don't directly link, they link to the page that will say, you have to pay $59 to get
You have to
this.
pay.
But I've
Yeah.
told
Yeah.
everybody,
Yeah.
if there's a one that you're really burning to read, reach out to me. I can send you the PDF and, I've
Yeah.
downloaded it already anyway, and, they don't link directly because it's still gonna link you to the either my site at Notre
Yeah.
Dame, and you're not gonna be able to get in. Um, but I've read through those and I can get them if somebody really has a burning desire. I've sent PDF copies to a lot of people here and there. Like, is there any way I could read this study? And yeah, I can get that to you. So
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kay.
you're
I love
welcome.
everything that you guys have done. I keep saying that over and over. I'll just continue to spread the gospel here that you
Yeah,
guys exist
that's
and you're
awesome.
in it to help vets and trainers and dog parents, and most importantly, to help pets, which is just fantastic.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. We want our dogs to live
Yeah.
happy, healthy, longer lives. So
Yes, for sure. Well, thank you so, so much.
you're
And
welcome.
yeah, enjoy the rest of your day. And
All
you can
right.
hang on if you want to talk for a moment.
Okay. Okay.